Safety Toolbox Talk Number 303. SOP for use, handling, storage, and control of hazardous chemicals. 1. Purpose. The purpose of this Standard Operating Procedure, SOP, is to outline the proper methods for the use, handling, storage, and control of hazardous chemicals in order to ensure the safety of personnel, minimize health and environmental risks, and comply with applicable regulatory requirements. 2. Scope. This SOP applies to all personnel involved in the handling, use, storage, and disposal of hazardous chemicals within company/facility name. It covers chemicals classified as hazardous by regulatory authorities such as OSHA, EPA, and the NFPA. 3. Responsibilities. Safety Officer. Responsible for ensuring compliance with this SOP, conducting training, and reviewing chemical safety protocols. Operations Staff. Responsible for following all SOPs, using PPE, and reporting any hazardous incidents. Management. Responsible for providing the necessary resources and training to ensure safe handling and storage of hazardous chemicals. 4. Use and handling of hazardous chemicals. Prior to use, review the MSDS for the chemical to understand its properties, hazards, and emergency procedures. Ensure that appropriate PPE is available and in good condition. Verify that the work area is equipped with necessary safety equipment, such as eye wash stations, safety showers, and fire extinguishers. During use, never eat, drink, or apply cosmetics in areas where chemicals are handled. Minimize exposure by using the chemicals in well-ventilated areas or under fume hoods when necessary. Always use the smallest quantity necessary for the task. Do not mix chemicals unless the process specifically calls for it and you have verified compatibility. After use, ensure that chemicals are safely returned to their storage locations. Clean up any spills or leaks immediately following the spill response procedure. Wash hands and other exposed areas after handling chemicals. Five. Storage of hazardous chemicals. General storage guidelines. Chemicals must be stored in designated areas with appropriate signage indicating the presence of hazardous materials. Store chemicals according to their classification, e.g. flammable, corrosive, reactive. Use labeled storage cabinets and containers. Store chemicals in compatible groups to prevent dangerous reactions. Ensure that all containers are tightly sealed to prevent spills or leaks. Specific chemical storage, flammable chemicals. Store in fire-resistant cabinets, away from sources of heat, flame, or sparks. Corrosive chemicals, store in non-reactive containers, and away from materials that could be damaged by corrosion. Toxic chemicals. Store in well-ventilated areas and use appropriate containment systems, e.g. ventilated cabinets or fume hoods. Compressed gases. Store upright and secure racks to prevent tipping or damage. Temperature control. Some chemicals may require storage under specific temperature conditions. Ensure temperature. Sensitive chemicals are stored in temperature-controlled environments. Labeling and identification. All containers must be properly labeled with the chemical name, hazard symbols, handling instructions, and the date of receipt. 6. Chemical inventory control. Maintain an up-to-date inventory of all hazardous chemicals stored and used in the facility. Include information such as chemical name, quantity, location, manufacturer, MSDS, and expiration date, if applicable. Review inventory regularly to ensure that chemicals are within their usable period and are not exceeding safe storage limits. Implement a first in, first out, FIFO, policy to ensure older chemicals are used first. 7. Emergency procedures. Spill response. Immediately alert all personnel in the affected area. Evacuate if necessary. Use spill containment kits and absorbents as necessary, following the guidelines in the chemicals MSDS. Report all spills to the supervisor and/or chemical safety officer. Fire. Follow the facility's fire evacuation plan. Use a fire extinguisher appropriate for the type of chemical fire, e.g. Class B for flammable liquids. If the fire is uncontrollable, activate the facility's fire alarm and evacuate. Exposure or injury. For skin contact, rinse the affected area with water for at least 15 minutes. For eye contact, flush eyes with water for at least 15 minutes and seek medical attention immediately. For inhalation, move the individual to fresh air and seek medical attention if symptoms persist. Report all injuries or exposures immediately. '8. Training and documentation. Training requirements. All personnel must complete training on the safe handling of hazardous chemicals before they are allowed to handle chemicals. Training must cover chemical properties, emergency procedures, proper PPE use, and hazard communication. Refresher training should be conducted annually or whenever new chemicals are introduced to the workplace. Documentation. Maintain records of training, chemical safety audits, MSDS, and inventory logs. Ensure that all chemical-related incidents, spills, or exposures are documented and investigated. '9. Disposal of hazardous chemicals. Waste disposal. Dispose of hazardous chemicals in accordance with local, state, and federal regulations. Use licensed hazardous waste disposal contractors when necessary. Keep detailed records of hazardous waste disposal, including the type and quantity of waste, and the disposal method. Waste labeling. All hazardous waste must be labeled clearly with the words hazardous waste and include the chemical name, hazard symbols, and the date of disposal. 10. References. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Hazard Communication Standard, 29 CFR 1910.1200. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, Hazardous Waste Regulations, 40 CFR 261. National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, Code 30, Flammable and Combustible Liquids Code. Thank you.